A very good day to our grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's lesson. My name is Mampani Kekana as usual. Remember that the lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Center. Now, boys and girls, it's a crunch time. I know most of you are very busy with the revision, busy with revision. So on our side as well, we prepared a lesson that we prepared a lesson of which we're going to revise some of the sections of the mathematical literacy that you have already covered. As you can see, our focus today is going to be on income, expenditure, and break-even analysis. That is one section that we find under the topic finance. It is also one of the easiest and interesting section in mathematical literacy. So please stay tuned and then enjoy the lesson. So as usual, it's very important for us to indicate what will be your expectations. What are you expected to know in this section of mathematical literacy? So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to, very important, identify and perform calculations involving income, expenditure, profit, and loss values. Identify and perform calculations involving income, expenditure, profit, and loss values. Now remember, if you can look at the concepts behind this section, we can always think about it from the point of running a business, from the point of running a business, or from the point of receiving money from your parents and how you spend it. And then also identify the cost associated with producing with or manufacturing an item or rendering a service. Determine the cost of production and cost price of an item. Determine the break-even values by reading off or estimating the values from a graph or a table. As always, terminologies are very important, boys and girls. We cannot be working with certain concepts, but you don't know how to define them. But the nice thing about the mathematical literacy is you are not restricted in terms of writing down a definition. You are not restricted. If you can write a definition according to your own understanding, as long as there's a couple of words, maybe 4 to 5 words, the way you understand the terminologies, that will be enough. That will be enough. Exactly the same way you understand it, boys and girls. You are not actually restricted to memorize the terminologies or the definitions. Now, some of the simple definitions in this case, it's an income. What do we mean by income? It's money received when selling goods or offering a service. Money received when selling goods or offering a service. So obviously, if you are a business person, maybe you are selling cool drinks or you are selling sweets, you expect to get money from that selling. So that will be the money received for when selling goods. And then let's say, for instance, there's a service that you're offering. Maybe you're a mechanic, or maybe you've got the catering and so on. You expect to get some money from that operation. So obviously that will be from offering a service. And then expenditure, it's the payment of goods or services provided. Payment for goods or services provided. Profit, it's when income is bigger than it's when income is bigger than expenses. So obviously, if you are running a business, for you to make a profit, you have to make sure that whatever you are selling, the price is bigger than what it cost you, what you bought it for. So when income is bigger than expenses, so obviously that will be a profit. But when expenses are bigger than income, okay, when expenses are bigger than income, then we say this is a loss. Expenses are bigger than income. Okay, so it means you would not be making any profit there. And then, of course, budget. You might have heard your parents talking about budget, or even you yourself, when they give you money, you start planning um, about what you're going to do with the money and so on. So in that case, we're talking about budget. A budget is a list of expected income and expenditure. A list of expected income and expenditure. And then cost price. Okay, now think about the cost price. If you are running a business, now you have to go and buy a stock. In a very common language, we say you go and buy a stock, then you're going to pay a cost price. A cost price is how much or the cost price is how much the item cost the business. How much the item cost the business. So that is a cost price. And then of course, selling price. After buying the stock, obviously you're going to sell it, but obviously you'll have to sell it a little bit more than you bought it for. So selling price, the selling price is how much the business gets for the item. How much the business gets for an item. And then the break-even point refers to a point where a business is not making a profit or a loss. Refers to a point where a business is not making a profit or a loss. So let's say, for instance, in this case, you buy a stock for 5 Rand per item, but you still sell it for 5 Rand per item. It doesn't matter how many items you're going to buy and how many items you're going to sell. At the end of the day, you're not going to make any profit. So in that case, we say it's a break-even point. Okay, now with regard to income and expenditure, we've got the following. Of course, we've got income and expenditure. If you are running a business, you're always going to have an income and expenditure. Okay, you're going to receive money from any items that you'll be selling. If you are rendering a service, you'll always get money from rendering that service. But you are also going to have operational cost. In a case of catering, you'll always have operational cost, like, for instance, transportation, hiring employees or people to help you, and so on and so on. So that will be the expenditure. Now, with regard to income and expenditure in a business, obviously will always have the income that will remain the same, or will have the expenditures that will always remain the same. So in this case, we've got income and expenditure. So we've got what is called a fixed income. A fixed income. Fixed income is an income that stays the same monthly. Fixed income is an income that stays the same monthly. It depends on how you calculate your income. If you expect to get your income on weekly basis, we will say income that stays the same on weekly basis. Okay, example, your salary. Okay, if you are working and you earn a salary per month, in most cases the salary, it's the same. You are getting the same amount every month. And then, of course, pocket money. If your parents are giving you a pocket money every day, let's say, for instance, they are giving you 20 Rand, or they are giving 30 Rand, or they are giving 50 Rand. Okay, so they are giving you 50 Rand every day, which is the same amount. It doesn't change. Okay, even maybe over a month, it will be over a month. If it's 50 Rand per day, then maybe you're going to school for 5 days. It's 50 Rand times 5 is 250. So in a month, they know that you're going to get about 1,000 Rand. Okay, or a rent. Okay, if where you are, or maybe there's a rental money that you are receiving, that will be regarded as a fixed income. Okay, and then with regard to expenditures, these are expenses that stay the same on a monthly basis. For example, paying a rent. If you are paying a rent, that will be regarded as an expenditure, but obviously paying a rent, the amount that you pay every month will be the same. Okay, the amount that you're going to pay every month is the same. Even if it has to change, it's going to change maybe after a year, or maybe the landlord will give you a notice. But one thing for sure is you're definitely sure that this is the amount that I'm going to pay at the end of the month, or this is the amount that I'm going to pay at the end of next month, and so on. Okay, and then insurance. Okay, if you've got an insurance, let's say you're running a business and then you've got insurance, you are definitely sure that every month I'm going to pay the same amount. If the amount is to change, you're going to have a timeous notice for you to change, of for you to be able to prepare yourself. In other words, they'll give you enough time to start budgeting and so on. But one thing for sure is you're going to pay the same amount every month. Savings, if you have to save a certain amount, you decide to save 500 rand or you save 1000 rand every month, that will be the same every month. That will be the same every month. Should you decide, it's not something that is going to happen instantly, so it's something that you're going to think about it. But as long as you're sure that every month I'm going to save 500 rand, and then that will be regarded as fixed expenses. And then of course subscriptions. Okay, if you've got a cell phone contract, obviously you'll be expected to pay almost the same amount every month, almost the same amount every month. And then we've got variable. Variable simply means this is something that is changing. Okay, it's not the same, it's something that is changing. So with regard to income, is an income that changes on a regular basis, an income that changes on a regular basis. We can give an example with taxi operators or taxi drivers, and so on. Taxi drivers, normally they've got a target per day, but that does not necessarily mean they are making the same amount of money every day, even in a month. Okay, because maybe sometimes they've got specials and so on and so on. So we cannot necessarily say they got a fixed income. They might have a variable income. Okay, and then we've got some people who are working at the shops. Okay, okay, so maybe their salaries depend on how many items they would have sold for that month and so on. So example is a commission. Okay, so if you are working a furniture store, sorry, if you work at furniture store, then maybe you might earn, or you might get a commission based on how much or how many items you have sold for that. And then interest, so we know that the interest changes, so you might get the same amount. Taxes as well, and then also the sales. If you are selling items, you don't necessarily sell the same items every day or every month. That will be regarded as a variable. And then we've got expenses that changes every month. Okay, this is a variable expenses. Okay, variable expenses, these are the expenses that change every month. Example, we've got groceries. We don't necessarily plan to pay, to buy the same items for groceries. Okay, every month. If we have probably purchased uh, a pack of tissues for a month, does not necessarily mean next month we have to buy again. If we buy a bottle of cooking oil and then it's 5 liter, we don't necessarily have to buy next month, and so on, right? So the groceries, example, groceries. And then for electricity, here we're talking about bills. If you have to pay for electricity, we are not necessarily using the same amount of electricity every month. Okay, we are not necessarily using the same amount of electricity every month. The same thing with water. Okay, we are not necessarily using the same amount of water every month. So this will be examples of variable expenses. And then of course we've got occasional. Okay, occasional income or occasional expenditure. Occasional income or occasional expenditure. Now, what do we mean by an occasional income? A once-off income. This must be a once-off income. Something that you receive once in a while. You don't necessarily expect to get it every day. Okay? Like a bonus, those people who are those who are working, okay, maybe they expect to get a bonus once in a year. So that is why we say it's an occasional, or maybe during their birthdays and so on. And then we've got gifts. Okay, we never know that maybe if you are doing good as an employee, your boss might decide to give you a gift or to surprise you with a gift. So that will be an occasional income. And then, of course, we've got donations and then also grants. And then, of course, with expenses, we've got once off expenses. Once off expenses, this is an occasional. We don't necessarily plan for this, and we don't even know when is it going to happen. Okay, we don't actually plan, and we don't know. Sometimes we don't even know if it's going to happen. Like for instance, if you've got a car, okay, you cannot plan that your car uh, is going to break down. Okay, so what's going to happen is if it breaks down, it simply means that is an occasional expenditure. And then we all have, I mean, most of us, we've got geysers at home. Okay, we expect a geyser to run smoothly on daily basis, but one day your geyser might burst, so that will be an occasional expenditure as well. And a renovation, we don't actually plan to renovate every year or many times in 10 years. So it's something that happens occasionally. You might decide to renovate a house once in 5 years or once in 10 years and so on and so on, depending on whether you've got money or not. Okay, now, as we indicated at the beginning, you should be able to know which ones are expenses and which ones are incomes. Now, classify expenses as follows. We've got fixed. These are the expenses incurred at a fixed term, e.g. month or week. Variable depends on sales items, so the variable will change now and then. How do we calculate an income? How do we calculate an income? If you have to calculate an income, you multiply the price of the selling item by the number of items sold. Let's say, for instance, you are selling sweets, so you want to know your income. Obviously, you're going to take the selling price of one sweet, you multiply by the number of sweets. So that is how we calculate an income. But how do we calculate expenses? It's a total fixed variable, and then you have to multiply the cost of buying item by the number of items. Okay, in some cases, when you are selling sweets, they will say you must have a stall or a space maybe where you are selling. So we might have seen some people in our areas having a space where they are selling, especially in the cities and so on. Okay, I don't know how many of you are aware that those people are actually paying for the space that they are using to sell the sweets. Okay, so in that case, we'll say add the fixed variables. So multiply the cost of buying an item by the number of items, that is a variable. Add the fixed expenses to the variable expenses. So the fixed expenses will be like you are paying for the space. Whether you're going to sell for that month or whether you're not going to sell for that month, you still have to pay for that space. So that will be regarded as a fixed expenses. And then, of course, we've got variable expenses that will depend on the number of sweets that we'll be buying for that month. So if we have to write down the formula for expenses, we'll say expenses is equals to fixed expenses plus variable expenses, or fixed cost plus fixed expenses plus variable expenses, or we can say fixed cost plus variable cost. Then we're now going to look at the cost price, selling price, and break-even analysis. We all know this. For a business to make money, it needs to sell goods or services for more than it costs. Okay, for a business to make money. So if you want to run a business, I think the purpose of a business is to make profit. The purpose of a business is to make money, actually is to make profit. because if you are buying items and you want to sell them, at the end of the day, you have to make more money than you spend. Okay, so for a business to make money, it needs to sell goods or services for more than it costs. The cost price is how much the item costs the business. Okay, that is the cost price, is how much the item costs the business. The selling price is how much the business gets for the item. The selling price is how much the business gets for the item. A business may offer the customer a discount on items. A business may offer the customer a discount on items. This means that the customer will pay less than the selling price for the item. So we all know that if they give you a discount, it simply means you are going to pay a little bit less than the original price. The profit a company makes is determined by the difference between the selling price and the cost price. So in other words, profit is the difference of the selling price and the cost price. If the selling price is less than the cost price, the company will make a loss. So in order for a company to make a profit, it simply means the selling price of an item must be more than the cost price of the item. If that is not the case, you will not going to make any profit. And then break-even point refers to a point where expenses and income of a business are equal. So in this case, there's no profit. It refers to a point where expenses and income of a business are equal. Okay, then on the graph, it's a point where the income and expenses graph meet. Calculating break-even point, income minus expenses will be zero. So in other words, if you've got a break-even point, the amount of income, and then when you subtract the amount of expenses, you must always get zero. So we'll say there's no profit or there's no loss. Graphically, the break-even point can be analyzed as follows. Okay, now this is just to give you a picture of what we mean. If you look at the graphs that are indicated here, we've got two graphs. Okay, so we've got this graph here, which represents an income. Okay, and we've got this graph, which represents expenses. Okay, so if you analyze, you will see that in this case, the starting point of an income, if you are selling items, if you don't sell anything, you are not going to receive any money. Okay, so that is why it starts at this point. But if you look at the graph of expenses, even if you don't sell anything, you are still liable to pay. Like for instance, if you are renting a space, if you are renting a space and for that day or for that month, you decide to go away and then you don't use that space, for the fact that somebody else was supposed to use that space, you still have to pay for it. So that is why you see the graph of the expenses starts at 50. Okay, then you can see that in this case, they say it's a loss. That is the red area. That is the part that we don't want. We don't want to make a loss. But the moment the graph of expenses is always above, if the graph of expenses is always above the graph of income, you'll be making a loss. Okay, if the value of the expense is bigger than the value of the income, you are always going to make a loss. And then at this point, that is where the two graphs intersect. That is where the two graphs intersect. It simply means the amount of income and the amount of expenses are the same. So there you are not making a profit and you are also not making a loss. Then the graphs continue. Now you can see that the graph of income, it's now above the graph of expenses. It simply means the values of income there are actually more than the values of expenses. So in this case, you start making a profit. As long as the income it's above or it's more than expenses, you are always going to make a profit. So it's very, very important for you to be able to interpret or analyze the break-even graphs. Very, very important, just to give you a picture of how the graphs of income and expenses look like. Okay, then this is another example of a break-even analysis. If you look at the two graphs that are indicated here, it's income and expenditure for Mary's hamburgers. Okay, income and expenditure for Mary's hamburgers. If you look at the two graphs, it's clearly indicated which graph is for the income, which one is for the expenses. Now, if you look at the graph of the income is the blue one, okay, if the number of items is 0, then your income will be 0. Okay, because you get an income from selling items. If you don't sell anything, you are not going to get any income. But if the number of items is 0, you can see that at this point, it's between 400 and 600. So it means the starting point, if the number of items is 0, then the expenses are about 500 rand a day. Okay, so it simply means even if you don't sell anything, but you still have expenses. And then of course, we've got here the graph of expenses is above the graph of income. So it means this part you are still making a loss. Okay, and it continues like that. And then at this point, it's a break-even point. It means now the value of expenses and income are equal. So this is the break-even point. Then the two graphs continue. Then in this part, you are now going to have a profit because now the values of the income or the amount of income are now bigger than the amount of expenses. That is why in this case, you'll be making a profit. So this one, you'll be making a profit, but in this one, you'll be making a loss. And then of course, on this one, it's a break-even point. Break-even point. So at break-even point, you are not, or you're not making a profit or a loss. Okay, so that is another graph of break-even analysis. Okay, now we're now going to look at the possible exam type questions. Okay, so we are now going to test your knowledge in terms of this subsection of finance. Okay, this one is a word bank is provided below. Match the words with the provided explanations. Okay, a word bank is provided below. These are actually the words that are provided. Okay, we've got profit, we've got entrepreneur, we've got income, we've got budget, we've got break-even analysis, and we've got allowance. Right. So they say match the words with the provided explanations. These are the explanations. The first explanation is money flowing into a business from the sales of masks. Money flowing into a business from sales of masks. So sales, obviously, it's from selling. Okay, so if you sell items, you expect to get an income. So definitely, income is one of the given ways there. So this is an income. So in this case, we'll say money flowing into a business from the sales of masks. That will be an income. And then the next one is a plan of action that shows how you intend spending and receiving money over a specific period. Okay, a plan of action that shows how you intend, how you plan, okay, how you plan spending your money and receiving money. So it means this one, you need to figure out how are you going to receive money and spend it, okay, or how are you going to spend money, but how are you going to get it? So in this case, it means you'll be talking about budget. So you'll be budgeting. So this one is a budget. So budget simply means you intend spending money and receiving money, or you intend receiving money and spending it. Then of course, that was B. So it means we've already used income and we have already used budget. Let's see. D is the business doesn't make any profit nor loss. The business does not make any profit nor loss. The business doesn't make any profit or any loss. So that will be a break even. Break even. Break even is where a business it's not making any profit or making any loss. Okay, then E is a person who starts and runs their own business. A person who starts and runs their own business. So, of course, it's an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. So, entrepreneur will be a person who starts and runs their own business. The extra amount of money after all expenses have been paid. The extra amount of money after all expenses have been paid. So this will be a profit. Okay, that will be a profit. The extra amount of money after all expenses have been made. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've already done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's until F. So I only had to choose a 5 from the 6. Okay, so I just have to make sure that choosing the correct words. So the first one is income, and then we've got a budget, and then of course we've got break even, and then the person who starts and runs is an entrepreneur, and then the extra amount of money after all expenses have been paid, that is a profit. So the examiner in this case gave just an extra one, just for in case maybe you're not sure, maybe you choose the wrong one, and so on and so on. But we only had to choose 5. Okay. Right. And then question 2, it's the following is the income and expenditure statement for Alice Boutique for a specific month. The following is the income and expenditure statement for Alice Boutique for a specific month. So this is a statement. Now in this statement, the statement shows the expenditure and it shows the income. Then under expenditures, we've got operating cost and we also have production cost. And then under income, of course, we've got only one type of income, right? So the dresses made and then the fittings. Okay, let's see. Calculate the value of E. So the value of E is under production cost. Then the production cost here, we've got fabric used, which is 25,000. And we've got other material used, which is 10,000. And then we've got seamstress wage, which is unknown, so it's E. And then the total is 42,550. So when I add up all these three, they must give me 42,550. So what I can do in this case, in order to find the value of E, I'll say E is equals to 42,550, and then I subtract the fabric used. I subtract 25,000, and then I also subtract 10,000. So 10,000 rand. Okay, so if I take 42,550, I subtract 25,000, then I subtract 10,000. Okay, let us use our calculator, boys and girls. So it's 25,000 minus 10,000 minus, actually it must be 42,550 minus 25,000 minus 10,000. Okay, then I get 7,550. So in this case, if I take 42,550, I subtract 25,000, and then I subtract 10,000. Okay, I just have to make sure that I've punched in the correct digits. So indeed, I'm getting 7,550. 7,550. Okay, so that is answer for number 2.1. Okay, you might have a slightly different way of doing it, but as long as at the end of the day the answer is 7,550, then that will mean your method is correct, because I know some of you will start by adding 25,000 and 10,000, you get 35,000, and from that 35,000 you say subtract 42,000 minus 35,000, so that will also be correct. Okay, still on the very same information, we now need to calculate the value of f. That is at number 2.2. Calculate the value of f. Now for the value of f, it's under income. So f represents the total income. In this case, the total income we can see is the income for the dressmaid and the income for fittings. So then we've got f, it's equals to 60,000 plus 3,850. 3,850. So you can indicate the units if you want to. Okay, so 60,000, then this will simply give me 63,850. 63,850. Okay, if you're not sure, you can still use your calculator. 60,000 plus 3,850, that will give us 63,850, and that is the value of f. Right, and then the next question, still on the very same information, we've got the following is the income and expenditure statement. Of course, provide two fixed costs for the business. Okay, provide two fixed costs for the business. Now, if we have to look at the fixed cost in this case, okay, the fixed cost in this case, we have to look at all the expenditures that are given. Which one do you think will remain the same? Which one do you think will remain the same every month? So now if I look at this, rental, okay, rental is an amount that will remain the same every month. Will remain the same every month. If you have to pay a rent, you pay the same amount every month. So the rental will be 5,000. So it means rental, it's a fixed cost. And then for electricity, okay, usually if you pay for your own electricity, you don't expect to use the same amount of electricity every month. So electricity cannot be a fixed cost. It's going to be a variable cost. And then water, the same way with water, we are not using the same amount of water every month, so water will be a variable cost as well. Telephone and internet, okay? Telephone and internet, using a telephone or internet, we are not using the same amount of data, or we are not making the same amount of calls or number of calls every month. So the telephone and internet cannot also be regarded as a fixed cost. Okay, then fabric used, okay? Now for the fabric used, obviously this will be different because you are not going to buy the same amount of fabric every month. Other material used, that might also change. The seamstress wage, okay? The seamstress wage. So remember, a seamstress, it's a person who is sewing. So the person who is sewing, so in other words, is a person who's sewing in this case, or we can say a tailoress, so on. So that will be a seamstress wage. This is the wage. Now, if you have to pay yourself a wage, or even if you have to pay your employees or your helpers and so on, you're going to pay them almost the same amount every month. So that is not actually going to change. If it changes, it's going to change maybe after a year or so. So in this case, we can say rental is one of the two And then we also have the seamstress wage. Seamstress wage, or you can just say a wage. Okay, so these are the two fixed costs for the business. The wages will be the same, and then of course the rental will be the same. So that is the answer for number 2.3. Okay, then the next question is still based on the very same information. What percentage is the fabric used of the production cost? Okay, what percentage is the fabric used? So the fabric used is 25,000 of the production cost, and then the production cost is, right, remember the production cost is now the total, it must be the total. So in this case, to get a percentage, we take the 25,000, then we divide it by the production cost. The production cost in this case, it's this one, 42,000. 42,550. Then we multiply by 100. Then we indicate the percentage key there. So on your calculator, you say 25,000 and then it divided by 42,550. Okay, then we multiply it by 100. So if we multiply it by 100, then we get 58 point. So it's 58.75440658, and then it's a percentage. This is the original answer that I'm getting from a calculator, but the examiner in this case, or the developer of the question, doesn't specify the rounding. So if you decide to round off, you must just make sure that you round off to correct decimal places. If you decide to round off to the nearest whole number, is going to be 59%. It's going to be 59%. It's 58. The first digit after the comma, it's 5 or more. So this will change to 59. Then if you round it off to one decimal place, you're going to say 58, comma. We check the 7. If the digit next to 7 is 5 or more, this will change to 8. So it's going to be 58.8. If you round it off to two decimal places, we look at 75. If the digit next to it is 5 or more, this will change to 76. But if the digit next to it is less than 5, this will remain the same. So it depends on how you round it off. In this case, if I round it off to one decimal place, and then I'll say 58.8%. But the examiner doesn't specify the rounding. So just make sure that when you round off, you also round off correctly. Okay, still on the very same question. The following is the income. Of course, we've already read that part. Did Ali make a profit or a loss during this month? Verify your answer showing all calculations. Okay, did Ali make a profit or loss during this month? Verify your answer showing all calculations. It's very important that the developer of the question has indicated that you must verify your answer showing all calculations, because some of you can actually see without even doing the calculations, because some of the calculations we have already done them. Okay, but let us look at this one. Remember, for this, we have to take an income. We have to look at the income. I think we said the total income was 63,850. Okay, and then we've got the expenditure. Expenditure must now be the total expenditures. Expenditure must now be total expenditure. It must be operating cost plus production cost. The operating cost is 6,470 plus 42,550. Sorry. Okay, expenditures are 6,470 and 42,550. So if I add them together, it's 6,470 plus this one, I made a mistake. It must be 42. There must be two there. 42,550. 42,550. Then it's 49,020. Okay, 49,020. So now we need to check. If I take the income, I subtract the expenditure. Okay, let's see. Did make profit? So we say, let's see, profit is equals to 63,850, and then we subtract 49,020. Okay, some of you can already see that this person is making a profit because an income is bigger than expenditure, or an income is above expenditures. So we just verify that. So we say 63,000, 63850 minus 49020. Okay, then we get 14,830. 14,830. So that will be the profit. Of course, did Ali make a profit or loss during this month? Verify your answer showing all calculations. Yes. So this one, we can say, yes, Ali made a profit. Okay. Ali did make a profit. So this one, we can say, yes, Ali did make a profit. Okay, so of course, we can see that from the income and expenditure, that income is more than expenditure. So definitely he is going to make a profit, or he did make a profit. So yeah, that is question 2.5. Right, then still on the very same one, they say a supplier offers Ali fabric that is 10% cheaper than the current supplier. Okay, in addition to this, supplier also offers a 5% discount. What would she pay for fabric if she decided to make use of the new supplier's offer? Okay, now for the fabric used, we can see that for the fabric used is 25,000. So it's 25,000 rand. Okay, so a supplier offers Ali a fabric that is 10% cheaper. It's 10% cheaper than this one. So if it's 10% cheaper than this one, how much, what is the cost of that fabric? Okay, so the cost of fabric will be, now we have to calculate. There's actually more than one way of doing the answer in this case, but I know that most of you will prefer this one, where you first calculate 10%. 10% of 25,000. Okay, then you say this is the same as 10 over 100 multiplied by 25,000. Okay, so if you calculate that, it's 10 over 100 multiplied by 25,000, and then this is 2,500. 2,500. So the fabric cost will be, the fabric will be 25,000 minus 2,500. Okay, 25,000 minus 2,500. Okay, so this will give us 22,500. 22,500. Then there's another additional 5%. So this one we can say, right, again 5 more percent. So we say, okay, from that 22,500, it's a discount of 5% again. So we say 5% of 22,500. 22,500. So this will be the same as 5 over 100 multiplied by 22,500. If you use your calculator, then you say 5 over 100 multiplied by 22,500. So this is 1,125. 1,125. So in the end, the amount will be 22,500 minus 1,125. So 22,500, 22,500 minus 1,125. So this is 21,375. Okay, that is if you do it step by step. So if you do it step by step, this is how you'll get to the answer. So it's 25,000. Then you calculate 10% of 25,000. And then from there, it's 2,500. Okay. So that will give you 2,500. Then you calculate the difference. So, and then, okay. So, yeah, so it was first the discount of 25,000. Then from that 22,500, they give a discount of, in addition to this, supplier also offers a 5% discount. So this is the answer for number 2.6. Okay, then the next question, it's study Laila's delicious seafood business budget given below and answer the questions that follow. 3.1, assist Laila's in completing the budget and calculating the profit or loss. Assist Laila in completing the budget and calculating the profit or loss. Okay, so in this case, if we have to complete the budget, we look at the following. It means we have the income. For the income, we've got 385,000. That is the only income from sales. And then we've got expenditures. For expenditures, we've got rent, which is 25,000. We've got salaries, which we don't know the amount. We've got repayment or delivery scooter, or repayment of delivery scooter, which is 9,500. And we've got variable expenses, which are for electricity and water, 8,200. And we also have consumables, which is 120,000. Then the total expenditure is 327,700. So we have to start by completing the budget. Completing the budget, it simply means we have to find the value of A. Now, to find the value of A, in this case, we can see that for all this amount, when we add them together, they must give us 327,700. For all this amount, when we add them together, they must give us 327,700. So to find the value of A, we say 327,700. And then we subtract all the other values. We can start here from the bottom. We subtract 120,000. And then we subtract 8,200. We subtract 9,500. We subtract 25,000. Okay, so I have to make sure. So I've got 327,700, which is this amount. Then I have to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4 values. I have to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4 values. So if I take my calculator, I say 327,700 minus 120,000. Okay, minus 120,000 minus 8,200. Okay, there's 8,200 minus 9,500. And then after subtracting 9,500, I have to subtract 25,000. 25,000. Then there I get 165,000. 165,000. It's the value of A. Okay. The question is, assist Lila in completing the budget. So in order to complete the budget, there was a value missing there. There was a value missing there, which is the value of A, which represents the salaries. So the salaries will cost 165,000. And calculating profit or loss, we need to check. In this case, are we calculating a profit or loss? Now, some of you might see that the income is bigger than the expenditure. Okay, once the income is above or is bigger than the expenditure, it means we're going to calculate a profit. So in this case, it's an income minus expenditure. Okay, then I do the substitution. Income is 385,000. 385,000. And then I subtract 327,000. 327,700. Okay. Now, boys and girls, usually even if you are given or you are using this formula, okay, you are using this formula of profit equals to income minus expenditure. If you take an income and you subtract expenditure and you get a positive answer, you must know that that is actually a profit. But if you are using the very same formula and then you say income minus expenditure and then you are getting a negative answer, you must remember that that is actually not a profit, but it's a loss. Okay, so in this case, or in a case where you see that the income is bigger than expenditure, automatically you must know that I'm going to get a profit there. So if I take 385,000, 385,000, and then I subtract 327,700, then the answer is 57,300. So that is 57,300. 57,300. It's a profit. So that is the answer for number 3.1. Okay. For number 3.2, it's the business had a profit of 28,000 in the previous year. Lila has a partner with whom she shares the profit in a ratio of 3:1. Where the biggest share goes to Lila, or the bigger share goes to Lila, calculate each partner's share of profit of 28,000. So this one, if you know how to divide in a ratio, okay, that is what the question is about. You just need to divide in a ratio. And then in this case, we've got a ratio of 3:1. So obviously, Lila will get a bigger cut, okay, a bigger cut of the profit. So if we calculate the sharing of a ratio or dividing in a ratio, we must first do the sum of ratio. The sum of ratio. So the sum of ratio is 3 plus 1, which is equals to 4. Okay, then we know that the first one is going to get 3/4. 3/4 multiplied by 28,000. 28,000. Okay, then the answer will be, so if you want to calculate, you say 3 divided by 4 multiplied by 28,000. I'm getting 21,000. So this is 21,000. Okay, then the next one, there are two ways of doing it. Okay, you can now say 1/4 multiplied by 28,000. 1 over 4 multiplied by 28,000. So if you say 1 divided by 4 multiplied by 28,000, then I'm getting 7,000. Getting 7,000. So some of you could have taken the 28,000 and subtracted 21,000 because there's only 2 people there. Okay, so but we did 2 calculations. They say calculate each partner's share, so and of the profit of 28,000. Okay, but obviously in this case you can also indicate that Lila will get this one will be for 9, because Lila is going to get the bigger share or the biggest share. Okay, so this is the answer for number 3.2, just dividing in a ratio. Okay, then number 3.3, it's their rent for the next year will increase by 7.5%. Okay, now remember we said a rent is a fixed expenses. It falls under fixed expenses because it's something that changes over a longer period. Okay, it's something that changes over a longer period. So the rent for the next year will increase by 7.5%. What will their total rent be for the following year? So it means we need to take 25,000 and we increase it by 7.5%. We say 7.5% of 25,000. 7.5% of 25,000, which is the same as 7.5 over 100 multiplied by 25,000. So if you use your calculator, 7.5 divided by 100 and then multiplied by 25,000. So it's 1,875. So the rent is going to increase by 1,875. So it means the rent for the following year, the rent for the following year will be 25,000, and then we add 1,875. Okay, then this will be 26,875. Okay, I know that there's more than one way of doing this. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the other way as long as you get to the same answer. Okay, but I know that most of you would prefer this way. Most of you would prefer this way, and then of course other learners would prefer a different way. Okay, so this will be 26,875. That will be the total rent for the following year. Okay, then for number 3.4, it's calculate the value of A. Of course, the value of A, we have already calculated the value of A because from the previous question, they just said help by completing. If I could take you back to the question, 3.1, it says assist Lila in completing the budget. So completing the budget, our assumption there was whatever is missing there, we had to complete it. And then after that, we also had to calculate the profit. So the value of A has already been done, boys and girls. Okay, then 3.5, it's 13.5% of their total salary bills is usually paid to casual delivery personnel. Calculate the average monthly amount paid out to casual workers. Okay, 13.5% of their total salary bill is usually paid to. So the salaries, it's we also calculated, that was the value of A. So the value of A that we calculated, if I take you back, if I take you back to the value of A that we have already calculated, the value of A that we calculated was 165,000. There it is, 165,000. So I just take that answer, 165,000, and then I know that that is the total salaries, 165,000. This is their total salary bill, total salary bill. But now 13.5% of this will go to the casual delivery personnel. So if I calculate 13.5%, 13.5% of 165,000, then this is the same as 13.5 over 100, then multiply by 165,000. So if I calculate 13.5%, 13.5 divided by 100, and then multiply by 165,000. So 165,000, I'm getting 22,275. Okay, so it's 13.5 over 100, and then multiply by 165,000. I'm just confirming it's indeed 22,275. But remember, according to what is indicated, here is the budget for a year. This is a budget. The budget that is indicated here, everything is for a year. Okay, budget for the year ending 29th February 2021. So it simply means this is also for a year, right? 22,275. Now calculate the average monthly. So monthly, it means it's going to be 22,275, and then I divide it by 12. So if I take 22,275, I divide it by 12, this will give me 1,856. 1,856 rand and 25 cents. Okay, so average monthly. So average monthly amount is 1,856 rand and 25 cents. So that is how we do number 3.5. Okay, then the next question is Tele High School tuck shop sells PS during lunch to raise funds for a sports tour. They bought a crate of 250 PS for 255 rand. They sold them at 3 rand each. Okay, then 4.5 is explain what is meant by a break-even point. Explain what is meant by a break-even point. Now, a break-even point is a point where the amount of income and expenditure are equal. Okay, a point where income and expenditure are equal, or a point where the amount of income and expenditure are equal. However way you can simplify it, but as long as at the end of the day it makes sense. Still on the very same question, 4.2, they say calculate the cost price for 1 PA. Okay, round your answer up to the nearest 10 cents. So calculate the cost price for 1 PA, round your answer up to the nearest 10 cents. Okay, now if we look at this 4.2, if we have to calculate the price of 1 PA, so it means we have to take 255 rand. 255 rand, we divided by 250 PS. Okay, so this will give us the answer. So 2 55 divided by 250. Then what I'm getting is 1.02. Okay, so it's 1 rand and 2 cents. So it's 1 rand and 2 cents. And then here they say round your answer up. Okay, it doesn't say round it off, it says round it up. So now if we round it up to the nearest 10 cents, this will be 1 rand 10 cents. Okay, so it's 1 rand 10 cents. If it was round off to the nearest 10 cents, it was going to be 1 rand. But now we need to round it up to the nearest 10 cents. So that will be 1 rand 10 cents. Okay, then this one is the selling price of 1 PA is 3 rand. Explain the meaning of the term selling price in the given context. Okay, the selling price for 1 PA is 3 rand. Explaining the meaning of the term selling price. Okay, in this context, so the selling price is the amount Okay, so this one, it's the selling price for 1 PA. So now we have to think about the term selling price. Okay, so the amount selling price. Now selling price is an amount that is used to sell an item. Okay, it's an amount or the amount used to sell an item. So in this case, it's going to be an amount used to sell 1 PA. Okay, it's not just an item, but we need to specify what type of an item is that. An amount used to sell 1 PA in this case. Amount used to sell 1 PA, so that will be enough. Then the next question is calculate the profit they made if 250 pairs were sold. Calculate the profit they made if 250 pairs were sold. So now first thing we need to check, what is our expenditure? In this case, expenditure is 255 rent for all the 250 pairs. And then now an income will be 250 multiplied by 3 rent. Okay, so each pair is 3 rand. So they're going to sell each pair for 3 rand, and they've got 250 of them. So 250 multiplied by 3 rand, then I get 750. So 750 rand. Okay, now in this case, already you can see that the income is bigger than expenditure. So definitely they're going to make a profit. But the profit amount will be income minus expenditure. Income minus expenditure, and then we say 750 rand minus 255 rand minus 255 rand. So the answer is 495 rand. Okay, income minus expenditure, 750 rand minus 255 rand. Then the answer is 495 rand. Okay, so that is the answer for number 4.4. Okay, so boys and girls, I can see the time. It's not, I'm being alerted about the time. The time is not on our side, but you can actually see how easy this section or this subsection is. Very, very, very important. It is actually one of those subsections where you can score a lot of marks as well. You can see how easy, how very easy they are. So it's very, very important that you must also go and study this section as well. I know that most of you tend to think that finance, it's very challenging in paper 1, but of course you still get some of those challenging questions, but you can actually still get some of the easiest concepts under finance. So it's very, very, very important. So since time is not on our side, this will bring us to the end of today's lesson. I hope you have enjoyed. And then thank you very much for watching this lesson. Please make sure that you prepare yourself for the prelim that is coming on the 29th of August. Please make sure that you prepare yourself very well for that question paper. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching this lesson. And then I hope to see you next time. Goodbye, boys and girls.